Chapter 3. The Kings Have Chosen. Do you believe Brahaspati? Asked Shiva. Night had fallen on the Panchavati guest colony just outside the main city. Injured and fatigued, Shiva's entourage had retired to their quarters for a well-deserved rest. Sati and Shiva were in their chambers, having just returned from the city. They had not spoken to a soul about what they'd learned at the Panchavati school. They had not even told the Suryavanshis that Brahaspati, their beloved chief scientist, was still alive. They were to meet him again the next day. Well, I don't think Brahaspatiji is lying, said Sati. I do remember that more than 2 decades ago, Lord Brigu had spent many months in Devagiri, which was highly unusual for the Rajguru. He is a rare sight in Meluha, since he usually chooses to spend his time meditating in his Himalayan cave. Aren't Rajgurus supposed to stay in the royal palace and guide the king? Not someone like Lord Brigu. He helped my father get elected as emperor because he believed my father would be good for Meluha. Beyond that, Lord Brigu has had no interest in the day-to-day governance of Meluha. Yes, he is a simple man, rarely seen in the so-called powerful circles. So he spent a lot of time in Devagiri. That may have been unusual, but what about the other things that Brahaspati said? Well, Lord Brigu, my father and Brahaspatiji were indeed away for many months. It had been announced as an important trade trip, but I can't imagine Lord Brigu or Brahaspatiji being interested in trade. Perhaps they were in Pariha at the time. And yes, the talented and lovely Taraji, who worked at Mount Mandar and had been sent to Pariha for a project, did disappear suddenly. It was announced that she had taken sannyas. Renouncing public life is very common in Meluha, but what Brahaspatiji revealed today was something else altogether. So you believe Brahaspati speaks the truth? All I'm saying is that Brahaspatiji may believe this to be the truth. But is it actually so, or is he mistaken? This decision of yours can change the course of history. What you do now will have repercussions for generations to come. It is a momentous occasion, a big battle. You have to be completely sure. I must speak with the Vasudevs. Yes, you must. But that is not all you wanted to say to me, is it? I think there is another aspect to be considered. What made Brahaspatiji disappear for over 5 years? What was he doing in Panchavati all this while? I feel this is an important question, perhaps linked to the backup manufacturing facility for the Samras that Father had told me about. Yes, I didn't give it much importance then, but if the Samras is evil, that facility is the key. Actually, the Saraswati is the key. A manufacturing facility can always be rebuilt, but wherever it is built, it will always need the Saraswati waters. Kali told me at Ichawar that her people attacked Meluhan temples and Brahmins only if they were directly harming the Nagas. Maybe those temples were production centers that used the powder from Mount Mandar to manufacture the Samras drink for the locals. She also said that a final solution would emerge from the Saraswati, that the Nagas were working on it. I don't know what that cryptic statement meant. We need to find out. You did not tell me about your conversation with Kali? Shiva, this is the first honest conversation we are having about Kali and Ganesh since you met my son at Kashi. Shiva became quiet. I'm not blaming you, continued Sati. I understood your anger. You thought that Ganesh had killed Brahaspatiji. Now that the truth has emerged, you are willing to listen. Shiva smiled and embraced Sati. Are you sure? Asked Shiva. It was late the next morning, 4 hours into the second prahar. Shiva sat with Sati at his side in his private chambers. Parvateshwar and Bhagirath stood in front, holding a plank. The Meluhan general and the Ayodhyan prince had just returned after surveying the destroyed battleships. Yes, my lord. The evidence is indisputable, said Bhagirath. Show me. Bhagirath stepped forward. The rivets on these planks are clearly Meluhan. Lord Parvateshwar has identified them. Parvateshwar nodded in agreement. And the casing, continued Bhagirath, that improves the waterproofing is clearly Ayodhyan. Are you suggesting that Emperor Daksha and Emperor Dilipa have formed an alliance against us? Shiva asked softly. They've used the best technologies available in both our lands. These ships had navigated through a lot of seawater, judging by the mollusks on them. They needed the best to be able to make the journey quickly. Shiva breathed deeply, lost in thought. My lord, said Bhagirath, for all his faults, I cannot imagine my father would be capable of leading a conspiracy such as this. He simply does not have the capability. He is just a follower in this plot. You have to target him, of course, but don't make the mistake of thinking that he is the main conspirator. He is not. Sati leaned towards Shiva. Do you think my father can do this? Shiva shook his head. No, Emperor Daksha too is incapable of leading this conspiracy. Parvateshwar, still shamefaced at the dishonor brought upon his empire, said quietly, The Meluhan Code enjoins upon us to follow the rules, my lord. Our rules bid us to carry out our king's orders. In the hands of a lesser king, this can lead to a lot of wrong. Emperor Daksha may have issued the orders, Parvateshwar, said Shiva, but he didn't dream them up. There is a master who has brought the royalty of Meluha and Swadweep together. Someone who also managed to procure the feared Daivi Astras. Heaven alone knows if he has any more divine weapons. It was a brilliant plan. By Lord Ram's grace, we were saved by the skin of our teeth. It cannot be Emperor Daksha or Emperor Dilipa. This is someone of far greater importance, intelligence, and resource, and one who is clever enough to conceal his identity. Return to Meluha, asked Virabhadra. Virabhadra and Kritika were in Shiva's private chambers. Kali and Sati were also present. Yes, Bhadra, said Shiva. It was the Meluhans and the Ayodhyans who attacked us together. Are you sure Meluha is involved? Asked Virabhadra. Parvateshwar has himself confirmed it. And now you are worried about our people. Yes, said Shiva. I'm worried the Gunas will be arrested and held hostage as leverage over us. Before they do so, I want you to slip into Meluha quietly and take our people to Kashi. I will meet you there. My scouts will guide Kritika and you through a secret route, said Kali. Using our fastest horses and speediest boats, my people can get you close to Micah in 2 weeks. After that, you are on your own. Meluha is a safe country to travel in, said Kritika. We can hire fast horses up to the mouth of the Saraswati. After that, we can travel on boats plying on the river. It's an easy route. With luck, we will reach Devagiri in another 2 weeks. The Gunas are in a small village not far from there. Perfect, said Shiva. Time is of the essence. Go now. Yes, Shiva, said Virabhadra as he turned to leave with his wife. And Bhadra, said Shiva. Virabhadra and Kritika turned around. Don't try to be brave, said Shiva. If the Gunas have been arrested already, leave Meluha quickly and wait for me at Kashi. Virabhadra's mother was with the Gunas. Shiva knew Virabhadra would not abandon her to her fate so easily. Shiva, whispered Virabhadra. Shiva got up and held Virabhadra's shoulder. Bhadra, promise me. Virabhadra remained quiet. If you try to release them by yourself, you will be killed. You will be of no use to your mother if you are dead, Bhadra. Virabhadra stayed silent. I promise you, nothing will happen to the Gunas. If you cannot get them out, I will, but do not do anything rash. Promise me. Virabhadra placed his hand on Shiva's shoulder. There is something you aren't telling me. What have you discovered here? Why are you so afraid suddenly? Is there going to be a war? Is Meluha going to become our enemy? I'm not sure, Bhadra. I haven't made up my mind as yet. Then tell me what you do know. It was Shiva's turn to remain silent now. I'm going back to Meluha, Shiva. Had you asked me a month back, I would have said this would be the safest journey possible. A lot has changed since then. You have to tell me the truth. I deserve that. Shiva sat them down and revealed everything he had discovered during the course of the last few days. And you killed the rhino all by yourself? Asked an impressed Anandmayi, her face suffused with a broad smile. Yes, Your Highness, said Kartik, stoic and expressionless as usual. Anandmayi, Ayurvati, and Kartik were settled comfortably on soft cushions in the dining room. Kshatriya in word and deed, Anandmayi and Kartik partook of the delicious rhinoceros meat. The Brahmin Ayurvati restricted herself to roti, dal, and vegetables. Have you decided to stop smiling altogether? Asked Anandmayi. Or is this just temporary? Kartik looked up at Anandmayi, a hint of a smile on his face. Smiling takes more effort than it's worth, Your Highness. Ayurvati shook her head. You are just a child, Kartik. Don't trouble yourself so much. You need to enjoy your childhood. Kartik turned to the Meluhan chief physician. My brother Ganesh is a great man, Ayurvati-ji. He has so much to contribute to society, to the country, and yet he was almost eaten alive by dumb beasts because he was trying to save me. Ayurvati reached across and patted Kartik. I will never be so helpless again, swore Kartik. I will not be the cause of my family's misery. The door swung open. Parvateshwar and Bajirath walked in. Just by looking at them, Anandmai could tell that they had discovered what she feared. Was it Meluha? Ayurvati winced. She could not imagine her great country's name being dragged into a vile conspiracy like the attack on the Nilkant's convoy at the outskirts of Panchavati. And yet, after what she had discovered of Emperor Daksha's perfidy during Sati's pregnancy at Maika, she would not be surprised if Meluhan's ships had carried out this dastardly act. It's worse, sighed Bhagirath as he sat down. Parvateshwar sat next to Anandmai and held her hand. He looked at Ayurvati, his pained expression bearing witness to his stark misery. The general prized his country, his Meluha, as Lord Ram's ultimate legacy. It was the custodian of Ram Rajya. How could this great country's emperor have committed a dastardly act such as this? Even worse, prompted Anandmai. Yes, it seems Swadweep is in on the conspiracy as well. Anandmai was stunned. What? It's either only Ayodhya or all of Swadweep. I cannot be sure if other kingdoms of Swadweep are following Ayodhya's lead, but Ayodhya is certainly involved. Anandmai looked at Parvateshwar. He nodded, confirming Bhagirath's words. Lord Rudra, be merciful, said Anandmai. What is wrong with father? I, for one, am not surprised, said Bhagirath, barely able to conceal his contempt. He is weak and gets easily exploited. It doesn't take much for him to succumb. For once, Anandmai didn't rebuke her brother for denigrating their father. She looked at Parvateshwar. He seemed lost and unsure. Change was horrible for the Suryavanshis, for the people of the masculine, used as they were to unchanging rules and stark predictability. Anandmai turned her husband's face towards herself and kissed him gently, reassuringly. She smiled warmly. He half smiled back. Kartik quietly put his plate down, washed his hands, and walked out of the room. It was early afternoon, as Kartik and Ganesh's steps led them around the 5 banyan trees from whose existence Panchavati derived its name. Non-Nagas were not allowed inside the inner city. In truth, many of them, Brangas included, refused to enter due to a strong superstition about the misfortune that would befall those that did. But the Nilkant's family did not believe in it, and anyway, nobody wanted to enforce an entry ban on them. Why have only Lord Ram's idols been depicted on these trees, Dada? Kartik asked his elder brother. You mean why have his wife, Lady Sita, and his brother, Lord Lakshman, not been shown? Not just them, even his great devotee, Lord Hanuman, is missing. Ganesh and Kartik were admiring the beautiful idols of Lord Ram sculpted into the main trunk of each of the 5 banyans. The 5 tree idols showed the ancient king, respected as the 7th Vishnu, in the 5 different roles of his life known to all: a son, a husband, a brother, a father, and a godly king. Each banyan trunk depicted him in a different form. In each form, in a manner that somehow appeared natural, the sculptors had made the idols look towards the temple of Lord Rudra and Lady Mohini at one corner of the square. Their idols, on the other hand, were placed in the front section of the temple, as opposed to the back, as in most temples, with the effect that the 2 deities appeared to be looking at all 5 tree idols as well. It seemed as if the architects intended to show the great Mahadev and the noble 7th Vishnu being respectful to each other. It's in keeping with Bhumi Devi's instructions, answered Ganesh. I know his traditional depiction in the Sapt Sindhu is always along with his 3 favorite people in the world, Lady Sita, Lord Lakshman, and Lord Hanuman. But it was an order of Bhumi Devi, our founding goddess, that Lord Ram always be shown alone in Panchavati, especially at the 5 banyans. Why? I don't know. Perhaps she wanted us to always remember that great leaders, like the Vishnus and the Mahadevs, may have millions following them, but at the end of the day, they carry the burden of their mission alone. Like Baba? Asked Kartik, referring to their father. Yes, like Baba. He is the one who stands between evil and India. If he fails, life in the subcontinent will be destroyed by evil. Baba will not fail. Ganesh smiled at Kartik's response. Do you know why? Asked Kartik. Ganesh shook his head. No. Why? Kartik clasped Ganesh's right hand and held it to his chest like the brother warriors of yore. Because he is not alone. Ganesh smiled and embraced Kartik. They walked silently around the banyan trees, doing the holy parikrama of Lord Ram's idols. What is going on, Dada? Asked Kartik, as they continued their circumambulation. Ganesh frowned. Why have both the emperors allied against Baba? Ganesh breathed deeply. He never lied to Kartik. He considered his brother an adult and treated him as such. Because Baba threatens them, Kartik. They are the elite. They are addicted to the benefits they derive from evil. Baba's mission is to fight for the oppressed, to be the voice of the voiceless. It is obvious that the elite will want to stop him. What is the evil that Baba is fighting? How has it entrenched its claws so deeply? Ganesh took Kartik by the hand and made him sit at the foot of one of the banyans. This is for you alone, Kartik. You are not to tell anyone else, for it is Baba's right to decide when and how others are to be informed. Kartik nodded in response. Ganesh sat next to Kartik and explained to him about what Brahaspati and Shiva had discussed the previous day. What have you been doing these past 5 years, Brahaspati? Asked Shiva. Sati and Shiva had joined the chief scientist in the Naga Queen's chambers. Brahaspati felt like he was being interrogated, but he could understand Shiva's need to get to the bottom of the issue. I was trying to find a permanent solution to the Samras problem, answered Brahaspati. Permanent solution? Destroying Mount Mandar is a temporary solution. We know it will get rebuilt. The Nagas tell me the reconstruction has been surprisingly slow. It shouldn't have taken 5 years. Not with Meluhan efficiency, but it's only a matter of time before it gets rebuilt. Shiva looked at Sati, but she didn't say anything. Once Mandar is back to full manufacturing capacity, the destruction of the Saraswati and the production of the toxic waste will begin in large measure once again. So we have to find a permanent solution. The best way to do that is to examine the Samra's ingredients. If we can somehow control that, we could possibly control the poisonous impact of the Samra's waste. Many ingredients can be easily replaced, but 2 of them cannot. The first are the bark and branches of the Sanjivani tree, and the second is the Saraswati water. We cannot control the availability of the Sanjivani tree. Meluha has large plantations of it across its northern reaches. How many plantations can one destroy? Besides, trees can always be replanted. That brings us to the Saraswati. Can we somehow control its waters? Shiva remembered parts of a conversation with Daksha when he had first arrived in Devagiri. I was told by Emperor Daksha that the Chandravanshis did try to destroy the Saraswati more than 100 years ago by taking one of its main tributaries, the Yamuna, away from it and redirecting its flow towards the Ganga. It didn't really make much sense to me, but the Meluhans seemed to believe it. Brahaspati sniggered. The Chandravanshi ruling class cannot even build roads in their own empire. How can anyone think that they would have the ability to change the course of a river? What happened 100 years ago was an earthquake that changed the course of the Yamuna. The Meluhans subsequently defeated the Chandravanshis, and the resultant treaty mandated that the early course of the Yamuna would become no man's land. And Meluhans do have the technology to change the course of rivers. They built giant embankments to block and change the course of the Yamuna to make it flow back into the Saraswati. So what was your plan? Destroy the Yamuna embankments? No, I had considered it, but that is impossible as well. They have many fail-safe options. It would take 5 brigades and months of open work to be able to destroy those embankments. We would obviously have had to work in secret with a small number of people. So what was your plan? An alternative. We cannot take the Saraswati away, but could we make the Saraswati much less potent in the production of the Samras? Is it possible to add something to the Yamuna waters at its source, which would then flow into the Saraswati and control the amount of waste being produced? I thought that we had found one such ingredient. What? A bacterium which reacts with the Sanjivani tree and makes it decay almost instantly. I thought the Sanjivani tree was already unstable and decayed rapidly. Ayurvati had told me the Naga medicine is created by mixing the crushed branches of another tree with the Sanjivani bark to stabilize it. If the Sanjivani is already unstable, why would it need bacteria to aid the decay? Wouldn't it just decay anyway? The Sanjivani bark becomes unstable once stripped off the branch. The entire branch, if used, is not. The bark is easier for small-scale manufacture, but for manufacturing the Samras in large quantities, we have to use crushed branches. This is what we did at Mount Mandar, but it is a method known only to my scientists. So what you want to do is make the Sanjivani branch also unstable. Yes, and I discovered that it was possible to do so with this bacterium. but it is only available in Mesopotamia. Is this what you picked up Karachapa when you accompanied me on my initial travels through Meluha? You had said you were expecting a shipment from Mesopotamia. Yes, said Brahaspati, and it would have worked perfectly. The samras cannot be made without both the Sanjivani tree and Saraswati water. The presence of bacteria in the Saraswati water would render useless the Sanjivani tree at the beginning of the process itself, and in any case, without the Saraswati water, the samras cannot be made. Without the power of the Sanjivani, the samras would not be as potent. It will not triple or quadruple one's lifespan, but only increase it by 20 or 30 years. However, it would also mean that there would be practically no production of samras waste. By sacrificing some of the powers of the samras, we would take away all the poison of the samras waste. Furthermore, these bacteria also mix with water and then multiply prodigiously. All we needed to do was release it in the Yamuna, and the rest would follow. Sounds perfect. Why didn't you? There is no free lunch, said Brahaspati. The bacteria came with its own problems. It is a mild toxin in itself. If we mix it in large quantities, as would be required in the Saraswati, we could create a new set of diseases for all living beings, dependent not just on the Saraswati, but also the Yamuna. We would have only replaced one problem with another. So you were trying to see if the poisonous effect of the bacteria could be reduced or removed without disturbing its ability to destroy the Sanjivani tree? Yes. Secrecy was required. If those who support the samras knew about these bacteria, they would try to kill it at its source. Had they known I was working on an experiment such as this, they would have had me assassinated. Aren't you afraid of being killed now? Asked Shiva. A lot of Meluhans will be angry with you when they discover you weren't the victim, but the perpetrator of the attack on Mount Mandar. Brahaspati breathed deeply. Earlier, it was important for me to remain alive since I alone could have done this research. But I have failed, and the solution to the Samras problem is not in my hands anymore. It's in your hands. It doesn't matter if I live any longer. Mount Mandar will be reconstructed. It's a matter of time, and Samras production will begin once again. You have to stop it, Shiva. For the sake of India, you have to stop the Samras. The reconstruction is a charade, Brahaspatiji, said Sati. It's to mislead enemies into thinking that it will take time to get Samras production back on track, to make them think that Meluha must be surviving on lower quantities of Samras. What? Is there another facility? Asked Brahaspati as he looked quickly at Kali. But that cannot be true. It is, answered Sati. I was told by Father himself. Apparently it was built years ago, as a backup to Mount Mandar, just in case. Where? Asked Kali. I don't know, replied Sati. Damn! Exclaimed Kali, scowling darkly as she turned to Brahaspati. You had said that was not possible. The churners needed materials from Egypt. They could not be built from Indian material. We have allies constantly watching those Egyptian mines. No material has gone to Meluha. Brahaspati's face turned white as the implications dawned on him. He held his head and muttered, Lord Ram, be merciful. How can they resort to this? Resort to what? Asked Shiva. There's another way in which the Saraswati waters can be mixed with the crushed Sanjivani branches, but it's considered wasteful and repugnant. Why? Firstly, it uses much larger quantities of the Saraswati water. Secondly, it needs animal or human skin cells. Excuse me, cried Shiva and Sati. It doesn't mean that one skins a live animal or human, said Brahaspati as though reassuring them. What is needed is old and dead skin cells that we shed every minute that we are alive. The cells help the Saraswati waters to grate the Sanjivani branches at molecular levels. The waters mixed with dead skin cells are simply poured over crushed branches placed in a chamber. This process does not require any churning, but as you can imagine, it wastes a lot of water. Secondly, how would one find animals and humans who would come to a faraway facility and get into a pool of water above a chamber which contains crushed Sanjivani branches? It is risky. Why? Dead skin cells of humans or animals are best shed while bathing. A human sheds between 2 to 3 kilograms every year. Bathing hastens the process. But why is this risky? Because Samras production is inherently unstable. The skin cell route even more so. One doesn't want large populations anywhere close to a Samras facility. If anything goes wrong, The resultant explosion can kill hundreds of thousands. Even in the usual, less risky churning process, we do not build Samra's production centers close to cities. Can you imagine what would happen if the riskier skin cell process was being conducted close to a city with a large number of humans ritually bathing above a Samra's production center? Shiva's face suddenly turned white. Public baths in Meluhan cities, he whispered. Exactly, said Brahaspati. Build the facility within a city, below a public bath. One would have all the dead skin cells that one would need. And if something goes wrong, if an explosion takes place, blame the Daivi Astras or the Nagas. Blame the Chandravanshis if you want, fumed Brahaspati. Having created so many evil specters, you can take your pick. Something is wrong, said Brigu. He was surveying the destroyed remains of Mount Mandar with Dilipa. The Samra's manufacturing facility looked nowhere near completion, though reconstruction was on. Dilipa turned towards the sage. I agree, Maharishiji. It has been more than 5 years since the Nagas destroyed Mandar. It's ridiculous that the facility has still not been reconstructed. Brigu turned to Dilipa and waved his hand dismissively. Mount Mandar is not important anymore. It's only a symbol. I'm talking about the attack on Panchavati. Dilipa stared wide-eyed at the sage. Mount Mandar is not important? This means that the rumors are true. Another Samra's manufacturing facility does exist. I had given a whole kit of homing pigeons to the attackers, continued Brigu, not bothering with Dilipa's incredulous look. All of them had been trained to return to this site. The last pigeon came in 2 weeks back. Dilipa frowned. You can trust my man, my lord. He will not fail. Brigu had appointed an officer from Dilipa's army to lead the attack on Shiva's convoy at Panchavati. He did not trust Daksha's ability to detach himself from his love for his daughter. Of that I am sure. He has proven himself trustworthy, strictly complying with my instructions to send back a message every week. The fact that the updates have suddenly stopped means that he has either been captured or killed. I'm sure a message is on its way. We needn't worry. Brigu turned sharply towards Dilipa. Is this how you govern your empire, great king? Is it any wonder that your son's claim to the throne appears legitimate? Dilipa's silence was telling. Brigu sighed. When you prepare for war, you should always hope for the best, but be ready for the worst. The last dispatch clearly stated that they were but 6 days' sail from Panchavati. Having received no word, I'm compelled to assume the worst. The attack must have failed. Also, I should assume Shiva knows the identity of the attackers. Dilipa didn't speak, but kept staring at Brigu. He thought Brigu was overreacting. I'm not overreacting, Your Highness, said Brigu. Dilipa was stunned. He hadn't uttered a word. Do not underestimate the issue, said Brigu. This is not about you or me. This is about the future of India. This is about protecting the greatest good. We cannot afford to fail. It is our duty to Lord Brahma, our duty to this great land of ours. Dilipa remained silent, though one thought kept reverberating in his mind. I am way out of my depth here. I have entangled myself with powers that are beyond mere emperors.